All right, Book 9 of Chapman's Homer, the Iliad, in which the Greeks, having been pushed back to the ships by triumphant Hector in Book 8, are now going to go out and seek the embassy towards Achilles so that he can rejoin the battle and put this quarrel with Agamemnon to the past. And we'll see how successful that is or otherwise. Can people like Ajax and Odysseus bring him around to the Greek cause? So here is Chapman's argument. To Agamemnon urging hopeless flight, stand Diomed and Nestor opposite. By Nestor's counsel, legates are dismissed to Thetis' son, who will denies to assist. Iota sings the embassy, and great Achilles' stern reply. So held the Trojans' sleepless guard, the Greeks to flight were given, to feeble consort of cold fear, strangely infused from heaven. Grief not to be endured, did wound all Greeks of greatest worth. And as two lateral sighted winds, the west wind and the north, meet at the Thracian sea's black breast, join in a sudden blore, tumble together the dark waves, and pour upon the shore a mighty deal of froth and weed, with which men manure ground. So Jove, as Troy, did drive the Greeks, and all their minds confound. But Agamemnon most of all was tortured at his heart, who to the voiceful heralds went, and bade them cite apart each Grecian leader severally, not openly proclaim. In which he laboured with the first, and all together came, they sadly sate. The king arose, and poured out tears as fast as from a lofty rock spring doth his black waters cast, and deeply sighing thus bespake the Achives, O my friends, princes and leaders of the Greeks' heavens, adverse kings, extends his wrath with too much detriment to my so just design, since he hath often promised me, and bounded with the sign of his bent forehead, that his Troy our vengeful hands should race, and safe return. Yet now engaged he plagues us with disgrace. When all our trust to him hath drawn so much blood from our friends, my glory nor my brother's wreck were the proposed ends, for which he drew you to these toils, but your whole country's shame, which had been huge to bear the rape of so divine a dame, made in despite of our revenge, and yet not that had moved our powers to these designs, if Jove had not our drifts approved. Which since we see he did for blood, 'tis desperate fight in us to strive with him, then let us fly, 'tis flight he urged thus. Long time still silence held them all. At last did Diomed rise. Atrides, I am first must cross thy indiscreet advice, as may become me, being a king in this our martial court. Be not displeased then, for thyself didst broadly misreport in open field my fortitude, and called me faint and weak, yet I was silent, knowing the time, loath any rights to break, that appertained thy public rule. Yet all the Greeks knew, oh well, of every age thou didst me wrong, as thou then didst refel my valour first of all the host, as of a man dismayed. So now, with fit occasion given, I first blame thee, afraid. Inconstant Saturn's son hath given inconstant spirits to thee, and with a sceptre over all an eminent degree, and with a sceptre's sovereign grace, the chief power fortitude, to bridle thee he thought not best thy breast should be endued. Unhappy king, think'st thou the Greeks are such a silly sort, and so excessive impotent, as thy weak words import? If thy mind move thee to be gone, the way is open, go. Mycenaean ships enow ride near, that brought thee to this woe. The rest of Greece will stay, nor stir, till Troy be overcome with full aversion, or if not, but doters of their home will put on wings to fly with thee. Myself and Sthenelus will fight till, trusting favouring Jove, we bring home Troy with us. This all applauded, and admire the spirit of Diomed, when Nestor, rising from the rest, his speech thus seconded. Tydides, thou art questionless our strongest Greek in war, and gravest in thy counsels too of all that equal are. Place with thee stand not strength, nor is there anyone can blame and contradict thy speech. Yet thou hast not gone so far, but we must further go. Art young, and well mightst be my youngest son, though still I yield thy words had high degree of wisdom in them to our king, since well they did become their right in question and refute in glorious going home. But I, well known, thy senior far, will speak and handle all, yet to propose, which none shall check, no, not our general. A hater of society, unjust and wild is he, that loves intestine more, being stuffed with manless cruelty, and therefore is persuading peace. In home flight we the less may blame our general, as one loath to wrap in more distress he loved soldiers. But because they bravely are resolved to cast lives after toils, before they part in shame involved, provide we for our honoured stay, obey black night and fall, now to our suppers, then appoint our guards without the wall, and in the bottom of the dike, which guard I wish my stand of our brave youth and Atreus' son, since thou art in command, before our other kings be first in thy command's effect. It well becomes thee, since it both what all thy peers expect, and in the royal right of things is no impair to thee, nor shall it stand with less than right than they invited be to supper by thee. All thy tents are amply stored with wine, brought daily in Greek ships from Thrace, and to this grace of thine all necessaries thou hast fit, and store of men to wait. In many meeting there thou mayst every man's conceit, and take the best. It much concerns all Greeks to use advice, our gravest nature, since so near our ships our enemies have lighted such a sort of fires, with which what man is joyed. Look how all bear themselves this night, so live or be destroyed. All heard, and followed his advice. There was appointed then 7 captains of the watch, who forth did march with all their men. The first was famous Thrasymed, adviseful Nestor's son, Ascalaphus and Ialmen, and mighty Merion, Alpharius and Deipyrus, and lovely Lycomed, old Creon's joy. These 7 bold lords and 100 soldiers led, in every severed company, and every man his pike, some placed on the rampire's top, and some amidst the dike. All fires made, and their suppers took. Atreides to his tent invited all the peers of Greece, and food sufficient posed before them, and the peers opposed their hands to it. Hunger and thirst being quickly quenched, to councils they still sit. First spake Nestor, who they thought of late advised so well, a father grave and rightly wise. Thus his tale did tell: Most high Atreides, since in thee I have intent to end, from thee will I begin my speech, to whom Jove doth commend the empire of so many men, and puts it into thy hand, a sceptre, established laws that thou mayst well command, a council all men under thee. Therefore doth behove thyself to speak most, since of all thy speeches most will move, and yet to hear as well as speak, and then perform as well a free just counsel. In thee still must stick what others tell. For me, what in my judgment stands the most convenient, I will advise, and am assured advice more competent shall not be given. The general proof that hath before been made, what I speak confirms me still, and now may well persuade, because I could not then yet ought, when thou most royal king, even from the tent Achilles' love didst violently bring against my counsel, urging thee by all means to relent, but you, obeying your high mind, would venture the event, dishonouring our ablest Greek, a man the immortal's grace. Again yet let's deliberate, to make him now embrace affection to our general good, and bring his force to field, both which kind words and pleasing gifts must make his virtues yield. O father, answered the king, my wrongs thou tell'st me right. Mine own offence mine own tongue grants. One man must stand in fight for our whole army. Him I wronged, him Jove loves from his heart. He shows it in thus honouring him, who, living thus apart, proves us but number, for his want makes all our weakness seen. Yet after my confessed offence, soothing my humorous spleen, I'll sweeten his effects again. present infinite. Which, to prove my firm intent, I'll openly recite: 7 sacred tripods free from fire, 10 talents of fine gold, 20 bright cauldrons, 12 young horse, well shaped and well controlled, and victors too, for they have won the prize at many a race. That man should not be poor that had but what their winged pace hath added to my treasury, nor feel my sweet gold's defect. 7 lesbian ladies he shall have, that were the most select, and in their needles rarely skilled, whom, when he took the town of famous Lesbos, I did choose, who won the chief renowned for beauty from their whole fair sex, amongst whom I'll resign fair Briseis, and I deeply swear, for any fact of mine that may discourage her receipt, she is untouched and rests, as he resigned her. To these gifts, if Jove to our requests vouchsafe performance, and for the work for which we wait, of winning Troy, with brass and gold he shall his navy freight, and entering when we be at spoil, that princely hand of his shall choose him 20 Trojan dames, excepting Tyndaris, the fairest Pergamus enfolds, and if we make retreat to Argos, called of all the world naval, our chief seat, he shall become my son-in-law, and I will honour him, even as Orestes my sole son, that cloth in honours swim. 3 daughters in my well-built court, unmarried are, and fair, Laodice, Chrysothemis, that hath the golden hair, and Diaphanasa. Of all 3 are the worthiest, let him take, all jointureless to Peleus' court, I will her jointure make, and that so great as never did any maid prefer, 7 cities right magnificent. I will bestow on her Enope and Cardamale, Mira for herbs renowned, the fair Ipia, Pedasus, doth with grapes abound, Anthea girded with green meads, fair Surname divine, all whose bright turrets on the sea in sandy Pylos shine. The inhabitants in flocks and herds, a wondrous confluent, who like a god will honour him, and him with gifts present, and to his throne will contribute what tribute he will rate. All this I gladly will perform, and pacify his hate. Let him be mild, tractable. 'Tis for the god of ghosts to be unruled, implacable, and seek the blood of hosts, whom therefore men do much abhor. Then let him yield to me. I am his greater, being a king, and more in years than he. Brave king, said Nestor, these rich gifts must make him needs relent. Choose then fit legates, instantly to greet him at his tent. But stay, admit my choice of them, and let them straight be gone. Jove-loved Phoenix shall be chief, then Ajax Telamon, and Prince Ulysses, and on them let these 2 heralds wait, grave Odius and Eurybates. Come, lords, take order straight. Make pure your hand, and with sweet words appease Achilles' mind, which we will pray the king of gods may gently make inclined. All liked his speech, and on their hands the heralds' water shed, the youths' crowned cups of sacred wine to all distributed. But having sacrificed and drunk to every man's content, with many notes by Nestor given, the legates forward went, with courtship in fit gestures used. He did prepare them well, but most Ulysses for his grace did not so much excel. Such rights beseem ambassadors, and Nestor urged these, that their most honours might reflect enraged Aeacides. They went along the shore and prayed the god that earth doth bind in brackish chains they might not fail, but bow his mighty mind. The quarter of the Myrmidons they reached and found him set, delighted with his solemn harp, which curiously was fret. With works conceited, though the verge, the baldric that embraced his lofty neck was silver twist, this when his hand laid waste. Eetion's city he did choose as his especial prize, and loving sacred music well, made it his exercise. To it he sung the glorious deeds of great heroes dead. And his true mind, practice failed, sweet contemplation fled. With him alone and opposite all silent sat his friend, attentive and beholding him, who now his song did end. The ambassadors did forwards press, renowned Ulysses led, and stood in view their sudden sight his admiration bred, who with his harp, and all arose, so did Menoetius' son, when he beheld him there a seat, Achilles thus begun. Health to my lords, right welcome men, assure yourselves you be, though some necessity I know doth make you visit me, incensed with just cause gainst the Greeks. This said, a several seat with purple cushions he set forth, and did their ease entreat, and said, now friend, our greatest bowl, with wine unmixed and neat. Pose these lords, and of the depth let every man make proof. These are my best esteemed friends, and underneath my roof. Patroclus did his dear friend's will, and he that did desire to cheer the lords, come faint from fight, set on a blazing fire, a great brass pot, and into the chine of mutton put a fat goat's flesh, or Tomidon held, while he pieces cut, to roast and boil right cunningly. Then of a well-fed swine a huge fat shoulder he cuts out, spits it wondrous fine. His good friend made a goodly fire, of which the force once past, he laid the spit low near the coals, to make it brown at last, then sprinkled it with sacred salt, and took it from the racks. This roasted on dresser set, his friend Patroclus takes, bread in fair baskets, which set on Achilles brought the meat, and to divinest Ithacus took his opposed seat upon the bench. Then did he will his friends to sacrifice, who cast sweet incense in the fire to all the deities. Thus fell they to their ready food, hunger and thirst allayed. Ajax to Phoenix made a sign, as if too long they stayed before they told their legacy. Ulysses saw him wink, and filling the great bowl with wine, did to Achilles drink, health to Achilles. But our plight stand not in need of meat, who late supped at Atreus' tent, the for thy love we eat of many things, whereof a part could make a complete feast. Nor can we joy in these kind rites that have our hearts oppressed, O prince. With fear of utter spoil 'tis made a question now, if we can save our fleet or not, unless thyself endow thy powers with wonted fortitude. Now Troy and her consorts, bold of thy want, have pitched their tents close to our fleet and forts, and make a firmament of fires. And now no more, they say, will they be prisoned in their walls, but force their violent way, even to our ships. And Jove himself hath with his lightnings showed their bold adventures happy signs, and Hector grows so proud of his huge strength borne out by Jove, that fearfully he raves, presuming neither men nor gods can interrupt his braves. Wild rage invades him, and he prays that soon the sacred morn would light his fury, boasting then our streamers shall be torn, and all our naval ornaments shall by his conquering stroke, our ships shall burn, and we ourselves lie stifled in the smoke. And I am seriously afraid heaven will perform his threats, and that 'tis fatal to us all, far from our native seats, to perish in victorious Troy, but rise, though it be late, deliver the afflicted Greeks from Troy's tumultuous hate. It will hereafter be thy grief, when no strength can suffice to remedy the affected threats of our calamities. Consider these affairs in time, while thou mayst use thy power, and have the grace to turn from Greece fate's unrecovered hour. Our friend, thou know'st, thy royal sire forewarned that should be done that day he sent thee from his court to honour Atreus' son. My son, said he, the victory let Jove and Pallas use, their high pleasures, but do thou no honoured means refuse, that may advance her in fit bounds contain thy mighty mind, nor let the knowledge of thy strength be factiously inclined, contriving mischiefs. Be to fame and general good professed, the more will all sorts honour thee. Benignity is best. Thus charged thy sire, which thou forgett'st. Yet now those thoughts appease that torture thy great spirit with wrath, which if thou wilt surcease, the king will merit it with gifts. And if thou wilt give ear, I'll tell how much he offers thee, yet thou sit'st angry here. 7 tripods that no fire must touch, twice 10 pans fit for flame, 10 talents of fine gold, 12 horses that ever overcame, and brought huge prizes from the field, with swiftness of their feet, that man should bear no poor account, nor want gold's quick and sweet. Had but what he won with them, 7 worthiest Lesbian dames, renowned for skill in housewifery, and bear the sovereign fames for beauty from their general sex, which at thy overthrow of well-built Lesboth he did choose. And these he will bestow, and with these her he took from thee, whom by his state since then he swears he touched not, as fair dames used to be touched by men. All these are ready for thee now. If at length we take, by helps of gods, this wealthy town, thy ships shall burden make of gold and brass at thy desires, when we the spoil divide, and 20 beauteous Trojan dames thou shalt select besides, next Helen the most beautiful. And when returned we be to Argos, be his son-in-law, for he will honour thee, like his Orestes, his sole son, maintained in height of bliss. 3 daughters beautify his court, the fair Chrysothemis, Laodice, and Iphianus. Of all the fairest take the Peleus as thy grave father's court, and never jointure make. He will a jointure make himself so great, as never sire gave to his daughter's nuptials. 7 cities left entire, Cadamele and Enope, and Hera full of flowers, Anthea for sweet meadows praised, and fairer decked with towers, the bright Epia, Pedasus, that doth god Bacchus please. All on the sandy Pelus' soil are seated near the seas. The inhabitants in droves and flocks exceeding wealthy be, who like a god with worthy gifts will gladly honour thee. Tribute of a special rate to thy high sceptre pay. All this he freely will perform, thy anger to allay. But if thy hate to him be more than his gifts may repress, yet pity all the other Greeks in such extreme distress, who with religion honour thee, and to their desperate ill thou shalt triumphant glory bring, and Hector thou mayst kill, when pride makes him encounter thee, filled with a baneful sprite, who vaunts our whole fleet brought not one equal to him in fight. Swift foot, he Achilles replied, divine Laertes' son, 'tis requisite I should be short, and show what place hath won thy serious speech, affirming naught but what you shall approve, established in my settled heart, that in the rest I move no murmur nor exception. For like hell mouth I loathe, who holds not in his words and thoughts one indistinguished truth. What fits the freeness of my mind will my speech shall make displayed, nor Atreus' son nor all the Greeks shall win me to their aid, their suit is wretchedly enforced, to free their own despairs, and my life never shall be hired with thankless desperate prayers, for never had I benefit that ever foiled the foe. Even share hath he that keeps his tent, and he to field doth go. With equal honour cowards die, and men most valiant, the much performer, and the man that can of nothing vaunt. No overplus I ever found when with my mind's most strife. To do them good, to dangerous fight, I have exposed my life. But even as to unfeathered birds, the careful dame brings meat, which, when she hath bestowed herself, hath nothing left to eat. So, when my broken sleeps have drawn the night's extremest length, and ended many bloody days with still employed strength, to guard their weakness and preserve their wives' contents in fract, I have been robbed before their eyes. 12 cities I have sacked, assailed by sea, 11 by land. While this siege beheld Troy. And of all these, what was most dear, and most might bring crown the joy of Agamemnon he enjoyed, who here behind remained, which when he took, how a few he gave, and many things retained. Other to optimates and kings he gave, who hold them fast. Yet many forsooth, only I sit with my loss disgraced. But so he gained a lovely dame, to be his bed's delight. It is enough. For what cause else do Greeks and Trojans fight? Why brought he hither such an host? Was it not for a dame? For fair-haired Helen, Doth love alone the hearts inflame of the Atreides to their wives, of all men that move? Every discreet and honest mind cares for his private love, as much as they, as I myself love Briseis as my life. Although my captive had at will to make her for my wife, whom since he forced preventing me, in vain he shall prolong hopes to appease me that know well the deepness of my wrong. But good, Ulysses, with thyself, and all you other kings, let him take stomach to repel Troy's fiery threatenings. Much hath he done without my help, built him a goodly fort, cut a dike by it, pitched with pales broad and of deep import. Cannot all these helps repress this kill-man, Hector's fright? When I was armed among the Greeks, he would not offer fight without the shadow of his walls, put to the Scion ports, or to the holy beach of Jove, come back with his consorts, where once he stood my charge alone and hardly made retreat, and to make new proof of our powers the doubt is not so great. Tomorrow then, with sacrifice performed to the imperial Jove and all the gods, I'll launch my fleet, and all my men remove, which, if thou wilt use so thy sight, or think'st it worth respect, in forehead of the morn thine eyes shall see, with sails erect, amidst the fishy Hellas pont, helped with laborious oars, and if the sea god sent free sail, fruitful Pythian shores, within 3 days we shall attain, where I have store of prize, left when with prejudice I came to these indignant eyes. There have I gold as well as here, and store of ruddy brass, dames slender, elegantly girt, and steel as bright as glass. These will I take as I retire. Shares I firmly save, though Agamemnon be so base to take the gifts he gave. Tell him all this, and openly, I on your honours charge, that others may take shame to hear his lusts command so large, and if there yet remains a man he hopeth to deceive, being dyed in endless impudence, that man may learn to leave his trust in empire. But alas, though like a wolf he be, shameless and rude, he durst not take my prize and look on me. I never will partake his works, nor counsels as before. He once deceived and injured me, he shall never more. Tie my affections to his words. Enough is the increase of one success in his deceits, which let him joy in peace, and bear it to a wretched end. Wise Jove hath reft his brain to bring him plagues, and these his gifts I as my foes disdain. Even in the numbness of calm death I will revengeful be. Though 10 or 20 times so much he would bestow on me, all he hath here, or anywhere, or Orchamon contains, to which men bring their wealth for strength, or all the store remains, in circuit of Egyptian Thebes, where much hid treasure lies, whose walls contain 100 ports, or so admired a size. 200 soldiers may affront with horse and chariots pass, nor would he amplify all this like sand, or dust, or grass. Should he reclaim me till this wreck paid me for all the pains that with his contumely burned like poison in my veins, nor shall his daughter be my wife, although she might contend with golden Venus for her form. What if she did transcend blue-eyed Minerva for her works? Let him a Greek select fit for her, and a greater king. For if the gods protect my safety, to my father's court he shall choose me a wife. Many fair Achaean princesses of unimpeached life in Hella and in Phthia live, whose sires do cities hold, of whom I can have whom I will, and more 100-fold. My true mind in my country likes to take a lawful wife, than in another nation, and there delight my life. Those goods that my father got, much rather than die here. Not all the wealth of well-built Troy possessed when peace was there, all that Apollo's marble fane and stony Pythos holds, I value equal with the life my free breast enfolds. Sheep, oxen, tripods, crest-decked horse, though lost, may come again. But when the white guard of our teeth no longer can contain our human soul, away it flies, and once gone, nevermore. To her frail mansion any man can her lost powers restore. And therefore since my mother queen, famed for her silver feet, told me two fates about my death in my direction meet. The one, that if I here remain to assist our victory, my safe return shall never live, my fame shall never die. If my return obtain success, much of my fame decays, but death shall linger his approach, and I live many days. This being revealed, to our foolish pride shall bridge my life of praise. And with myself I will advise others to hoist their sail. Against the height of Ilion you never shall prevail. Jove with his hand protecteth it, and makes the soldiers bold. This tell the kings in every part, for so grave legates should, that they may better counsels use to save their fleet and friends by their own valours, since this course, drowned in my anger, ends. Phoenix may in my tent repose, and in the morn steer course for Phthia if ye think it good. If not, I'll use no force. All wondered at this stern reply. Phoenix, full of fears, his words would be more weak than just, supplied their wants with tears. Thy return incline thee thus, Peleus' renowned joy, and thou wilt let our ships be burnt with harmful fire of Troy. Since thou art angry, O my son, how shall I after be? Alone in these extremes of death relinquished by thee, I, whom thy royal father sent as ordered of thy force, when to Atrides from his court he left thee for this course. Yet young and when in skill of arms thou didst not so abound, nor hadst the habit of discourse, that makes men so renowned in all which I was set by him, to instruct thee as my son. That thou mightst speak when speech was fit, and do when deeds were done, not sit as dumb for want of words, idle for skill to move. I would not then be left by thee, dear son, begot in love. No, not if God would promise me to raise the Prince of Time, carved in my bosom and my brows, and grace me with the prime of manly youth, as when at first I left sweet Hela's shore, decked with fair dames, and fled the grudge of my angry father bore, who was the fair Amintor, called surnamed Ormenides, and for a fair-haired harlot's sake, that his effects could please, condemned my mother, his true wife, who ceaseless urged me to use his harlot Clytia, and still would clasp my knee to do her wills, that so my sire might turn on his love to hate, of that lewd dame converting it to comfort for her state. At last I was content to prove to do my mother good, and reconcile my father's love, who straight suspicious stood, pursuing me with many a curse, and to the Furies prayed. No dame might love, nor bring me seed, the deities obeyed, that govern hell, infernal Jove, and stern Persephone. Then durst I in no longer date with my stern father be. Yet did my friends and near allies enclose me with desires, not to depart, kill sheep, boars, beeves, roast them at solemn fires, and from my father's tuns we drunk exceeding store of wine. 9 nights they guarded me by turns, their fires did ceaseless shine, one in the porch of his strong hall, and in the portal one before my chamber. But when day beneath the 10th night shone, I brake my chamber's thick-framed doors, and through the halls guard passed, unseen of any man or maid. Through Greece then rich and vast I fled to Phthia, nurse of sheep, and came to Peleus' court, who entertained me heartily, and in a gracious sort, as any sire his only son, born when his strength is spent, and blessed with great possessions to leave his descent. He made me rich, to my charge did much commend. I dwelt with utmost region, rich Phthia doth extend, governed the Dolopians, and made thee what thou art, O thou that like the gods art framed. Since dearest of my heart I used thee so, thou lov'dst none else, nor anywhere wouldst eat, till I have crowned my knee with thee, and carved thee tenderest meat, and given thee wine, so much for love, that in thy infancy, which still discretion must protect in a continual eye, my bosom lovingly sustained the wine thine could not bear, And now my strength needs thine as much, be mine to thee as dear, much have I suffered for thy love, much laboured, wished much. Thinking, since I must have no heir, the gods' decrees are such, I would adopt thyself my heir. To thee my heart did give, what any sire could give his son, and thee I hope to live. Mitigate thy mighty spirits, fits not one that moves the hearts of all to live unmoved and succour hates for loves. The gods themselves are flexible, whose virtues, honours, powers are more than thine, yet they will bend their breasts as we bend ours. Perfumes, benign devotion, savours of offerings burned, holy rites the engines are with which their hearts are turned by men that pray to them, whose fate their sins have falsified. For prayers are daughters of great Jove, lame, wrinkled, ruddy-eyed, and ever following injury, whose strong and sound of feet flies through the world, afflicting men, believing prayers, yet to all that love that seed of Jove at certain blessings get. To have Jove hear and help them too, but if he shall refuse and stand inflexible to them, they fly to Jove and use their powers against him, that the wrongs he doth to make to them may fall on his own head, pay those pains whose cure he fails to call. Then, great Achilles, honour thou this sacred seed of Jove, and yield to them, since other men of greatest minds they move. If Agamemnon would not give the self-same gifts he vows, but offer other afterwards, and in his still-bent brows entomb his honour and his word, I would not thus exhort, with wrath appease thy aid to Greece, that plagued in heaviest sort. But much he presently will give, and after yield the rest, to shore, which he hath sent to thee, the men thou lovest best, and most renowned of all the host, that they might soften thee. Then let not both their pains and prayers lost and despised be, before which none could reprehend the tumult of thy heart. But now to rest in expiate, where much too rude a part. Of ancient worthies we have heard, when they were more displeased to their high fames and gifts, and prayers they have been still appeased. For instance, I remember when a fact performed of old, which to you all my friends I'll tell, the Curates wars did hold. With the well-fought Aetolians, where mutual lives had end, about the city Calydon the Aetolians did defend their flourishing country, which to spoil the Curates did contend. Diana with the golden throne, and Aeneas much incensed, since with his plenteous lands, first fruits, she was not reverenced. Yet other gods with hecatombs had feasts, and she alone, great Jove's bright daughter, left unserved, or by oblivion, or undue knowledge of a Jew's, much hurt in heart, she swore. And she enraged, excited much, she sent a silver boar from the green groves, and with wounding tusks, who usually did spoil King Aeneas's fields, his lofty woods, laid prostrate on the soil, rent by the roots, trees fresh, adorned with fragrant apple flowers, which Meleager, Aeneas's son, slew with assembled powers, of hunters and of fiercest hounds, from many cities brought. For such he was, that with few lives his death could not be bought. Heaps of dead humans, by his rage, then the funeral pyres applied. Yet slain at last, the goddess stirred about his head and hide. Wondrous tumult and a war betwixt the Curates wrought and brave Aetolians. All the while fierce Meleager fought. Ill fared the Curates near the walls, none durst advance his crest, though they were many. But when wrath inflamed his haughty breast, which oft the firm mind of the wise with passion doth infest, since twixt his mother queen and him arose a deadly strife, he left the court and privately lived with his lawful wife, fair Cleopatra, female birth, of bright Marpessa's pain, and of Idaeus, who of all terrestrial men did reign. At that time king of fortitude, and for Marpessa's sake, gainst wanton Phoebus, king of flames, his bow in hand did take, since he had ravished her, his joy, whom her friends after gave the surname of Alcyone, because they could not save their daughter from Alcyone's fate. In Cleopatra's arms lay Meleager, feeding one in anger for the harms his mother prayed might fall on him, who for her brother slain by Meleager grieved and prayed the gods to wreak her pain. With all the horror could be poured upon her furious birth, still knocked she with her impious hands the many feeding earth, To urge stern Pluto and his queen t'incline their vengeful ears, fell on her knees, and all her breast dewed with her fiery tears, to make them massacre her son, whose wrath enraged her thus. Erenis wandering through her, the air heard out of Erebus prayers fit for her unpleased mind, yet Meleager lay, obscured in fury, and the brute of the tumultuous fray rung through the turrets as they scaled. Then came the Aetolian peers to Meleager's with low suits to rise and free their fears, and sent they the chief priests of gods, with offered gifts to tone his differing fury, bade him choose in sweet-soiled Calydon of the most fat and yieldy soil, what with 100 steers might in 100 days be ploughed, half that rich vintage bears, and half of naked earth to plough that yielded not his ire. Then to his lofty chamber door sends his royal sire, with ruthful plaints shook the strong bars. Then came his sister's cries, his mother then, and all entreat, yet still more stiff he lies. His friends, most reverent, most esteemed, yet none impression took, till high turrets where he lay, and his strong chamber shook with the invading enemy, who now forced dreadful way along the city. Then his life, in pitiful dismay, besought him, weeping, telling him the miseries sustained by all the citizens whose town the enemy had gained. Men slaughtered, children, bond-slaves made, sweet ladies forced with lust, fires climbing towers and turning them to heaps of fruitless dust. These dangers softened his steel heart. Up the stout prince arose, endued his body with rich arms, and freed the Aetolians' woes. His mother angered, giving heir which gifts did not assuage, but his own peril, and because he did not disengage their lives for gifts, their gifts he lost. But for my sake, dear friend, be not thou bent to see our plights for these extreme descend, ere thou assist us. Be not so by thy ill angel turned from thine own honour. Who art shamed to see their navy burned. And then come with thy timeless aid, for offered present come. All the Greeks will honour thee as of celestial rum. But if without these gifts thou fight, forced by thy private woe, thou wilt be nothing so renowned, though thou repel the foe. Achilles answered the last part of this oration thus: Phoenix round and reverent, the honours urged on us, we need not Jove doth honour me, to my safety seize, and will whiles I retain a spirit or command my knees. Then do not thou with tears and woes impassion my affects, becoming gracious to my foe, nor fits it the respects of thy vowed love to honour him with that hath dishonoured me. As such loose kindness loose his heart that yet is firm to thee, while thy praise to hurt with me the hurter of my state, since half my honour and my realm thou mayst participate. Let these lords then return the event, and do thou here repose, and when dark sleep breaks with the day, our council shall disclose the course of our return or stay. This said, he with his eye made to his friend a covert sign to hasten instant lie, a good soft bed. The old prince, soon as the peers were gone, might take his rest, when soldier-like brave Ajax Telamon spake to Ulysses, as with thought Achilles was not worth the high direction of his speech that stood so sternly forth, unmoved with your other orators, and spake not to appease Pelides' wrath, but to depart. His arguments were these: High-issued Laertiades, let us insist no more on his persuasion. I perceive the world would end before our speeches end in this affair. We must with utmost haste return his answer, though but bad. The peers are elsewhere placed, and will not rise till we return. Great Thetis' son hath stored proud wrath within him as his wealth, and will not be implored. Rude that he is, nor his friends love respects, do what they can. Wherein past all we honoured him. Oh, unremorseful man! Another for his brother slain, another for his son. Accepts satisfaction, and he the deed hath done, lives in beloved society long after his amends, to which his foes' high heart for gifts with patient condescends. But thee, a wild and cruel spirit, the gods for plague have given, for one girl, whose fair sex we come to offer 7, most exempt for excellence and many a better prize. and put a sweet mind in thy breast, respect thy own allies. Though others make thee not remiss, a multitude we are, sprung of thy royal family, and our supremest care is to be most familiar and hold most love with thee, of all the Greeks, how great an host soever here there be. He answered, Noble Telamon, prince of our soldiers here, out of thy heart I know thou speakst, and as thou holdst me dear, but still as often as I think how rudely I was used, and like a stranger for all rights, fit for our good refused, my heart doth swell against a man that durst be so profane to violate his sacred place, not for my private bane, but since racked virtue's general laws he shameless did infringe, for whose sake I will loose the reins and give mine anger swinge. Without my wisdom's last impeach, he is a fool and base that pities vice-plagued minds, when pain, not love of right, gives place. And therefore tell your king, my lords, my just wrath will not care for all his cares. Before my tents and navy charged are, by warlike Hector making way through flocks of Grecian lives, enlightened by their naval fire. But when his rage arrives about my tent and sable bark, I doubt not but to shield them, myself, and make him fly to their strong-banded field. This said, each one but kissed the cup, and to the ships retired. Ulysses first, Patroclus then, the men and maids required to make grey Phoenix's bed with speed, and see he nothing lacks. They straight obeyed, and thereon lay the subtle fruit of flax. And warm sheep fell for covering. There the old man slept, tending till the golden morn her usual station kept. Achilles lay in the inner room of his tent richly wrought. That fair lady by his side that he from Lesbos brought, bright Diomede, Phorbas' seed, Patroclus did embrace, the beauteous Iphis given to him, when his bold friend did race, the lofty Scyrus that was kept in Aeneas' hold. Now at the tent of Atreus' son, each man with cups of gold received the ambassadors returned, all clustered near to know what news they brought, which first the king would have Ulysses show. Say, most praiseworthy Ithacus, the Grecians great renowned, will he defend us? Or not yet will his proud stomach down? Ulysses made reply, Not yet will he appeased be, but grows more wrathful, prizing light the offered gifts in thee, and wills thee to consult with us. Take some other course, to save our army and our fleet, and praise with all his force. The morn shall light him on his way to Pythia's wished soil. For never shall high-seated Troy be sacked with all our toil. Jove holds his hand twixt us and it. Soldiers gather heart. Thus he replies, with Ajax here he can equally impart. And both these heralds Phoenix stays, for so was his desire, to go with him, if he thought it good. If not, he might retire. All wondered he should be so stern. At last bold Diomed spake, Would God, Atrides, thy request were yet to undertake, and all our gifts unoffered him. He's proud enough besides. But this ambassage thou hast sent will make him burst with pride, but let us suffer him to stay or go at his desire. Fight when his stomach serves him best, or when Jove shall inspire. Meanwhile, our watch being strongly held, let us a little rest. After our food, strength lives by both, and virtue is their guest. Then, when the rosy-fingered morn holds out her silver light, bring forth thy host, encourage all, and be thou first in fight. The kings admired the fortitude that so divinely moved the skilful horseman Diomed, and his advice approved. Then, with their nightly sacrifice, each took his several tent, where all received the sovereign gifts. Soft Somnus did present.